When you read the Bible, you are not likely to get the sequence of historical events that is described in the Bible. So let me try and break down the sequential historical events of the Bible according to timeline of history. Let's begin with Genesis chapter 1. In Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, the Bible said God created the heaven and the earth. Actually, the original word says in the dateless past, in the time without beginning, without time, without date, God created the heavens and the earth. When you get to verse 2, a completely different story. You hear something like, and the earth was void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. You understand? What happened between what God created in verse 1 and then chaos in verse 2? Now, between verse 1 and verse 2, there are a lot of theological arguments. There are a lot of sides to it. So I'm going to try as much as possible to stay in the middle, if it is possible anyway. Now, between verse 1 and verse 2, the events that happened that made chaos the creation of God is found in Ezekiel 28, Isaiah 14, and Revelation chapter 12, and some other places where prophets and seers and men of God spoke relating to the events in heaven. Now, it was between verse 1 and verse 2 that there was war in heaven, battle with Lucifer and all the likes, and God destroyed the creation, the planetary system as it was then, removing Lucifer from his domain that he had then. You remember the Bible said that he wanted to take his throne above the stars of heaven. So he had the throne, he had the dominion, but it was taken from him after the rebellion. And you remember that Jesus Christ even said, I beheld Satan falling like lightning. Understand? So he was thrown to the earth, and a lot of things happened. In verse 2, it wasn't a brand new creation, it was a reordering. Why did I say that? Look at verse 2. The Bible said, and darkness covered the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved. Verse 2 now made us presupposes that we know already in verse 2 that water had already existed. Deep means water. Darkness had already existed. I said, and the earth was void. So earth had already existed. That is in verse 2. From verse 2 is now talking about the bringing back of order into chaotic system that happened between verse 1 and verse 2. Okay, so when you bring in those verses or those chapters in Ezekiel, in Isaiah, in Revelation, and in some places of Daniel, and even in some places in Job, when you bring those verses out, and in some cases chapters, and insert it between verse 1 and verse 2, it gives you the flow of the sequence of order. All right, now when you jump ahead and look at the story in Job, the story in Job actually happened during the time of Abraham. When God was dealing with Abraham, before he became Abraham, the events described in the book of Job was also happening in a far place. That's why the Bible calls it the Far East. All right. Now let's move ahead through the wilderness, and now after Joshua, after the period of the judges. Now, the event described in Ruth, the event described in 1 Samuel about Samuel, the event described about Eli and his sons and all that happened during the time of the judges. All those events, including Samuel, were happening at the time the Bible called Judges. But just that